meeting to order. I'll start with the adoption of the agenda. Mr. Frank, we have a couple items to add there.
Your worship, one was added yesterday, and it's item, I'm just double checking where we put it. Where did we put it?
8.5, I think.
8.5, yeah. 8.5.
8.5, and then the other one is we're asking council to do committee of the whole, a joint liaison update, section
11.2.
Section 21, under the FOIP.
Maybe under 11.2. Okay, any other additions from council? Not seeing any. Can I get a motion? Councillor Wilhelm.
I'll motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Motion on the floor. Call the question. All in favor? That one is carried. 3.1, adoption of the minutes from our December 6th meeting. Any errors, omissions, any changes you guys see? Not seeing any. Can I get a motion? With Councillor Prestige.
Make a motion that council adopt the council meetings December 6th, 2023.
Motion on the floor. Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. 7.1, business arising. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning, Raven Council. So before you today is the request letter that was at the December 6th, the delegation at the December 6th council meeting, the Fort Assiniboine Parent Society. They're looking for funding for their breakfast program. Their letter is attached to your RFD, and your motion at that meeting was to bring it forward for budget discussions. Inside, we have three options in your RFD based on previous research and numbers that the Fort Assiniboine Parent Society provided. So you have three options. Just for consideration when you're discussing this, the first one is just a one-time seed grant to help them out based on what the Barrhead District FCSS calculated there when they did the breakfast program at the Fort Assiniboine School. It was 58 cents per child. So we just took that first year, just the 1 year to get the group started in this option, is just the September 2023 to June 2024 school year. The number of students times that 58 cents per child. So the first option for your discussion, it would be a grand total of $5,037.46. The second option for your consideration would be that same time period, September 2023 to June 2024, based on the numbers the Parent Society provided, $1 a day per the students. So that option was $11,582. And then the third option for your discussion is the full grant ask that they had outlaid in their letter of $16,982. And that included the following year from September to December 2024. So just for your discussions, and I am available for any questions in regards to this.
Okay, I'm still on board with supplying money for them, but like we said, they want to do this as hopefully a one-time thing. It's not really within the wheelhouse of what a municipality does, and I just don't want to kind of set the precedent where if we're making this an annual thing where we have asks from all the other schools in the region also. But on the other side, the Fort is very limited on the amount of commercial entities that they have to pull from when it comes to funding to help with a lot of the schools and these other programs, and it's not a large school group. So I am in support of giving them, we'll say, as a seed money to help get the program off the ground until they figure out more funding options or their grant that they've applied for comes in. But what's the rest of council? Councillor Gogan?
I guess sometimes when you research some of this stuff, it doesn't make you the most popular with the people that you represent. But I do have a problem with this, the way that we're constantly presented with funding requests, and I have a few ideas on how we may change that specifically for an area like Fort Assiniboine, which is unique in the sense that it is the only school in Woodlands County. But what we tend to forget is that there are more children going to schools in other school districts than what Fort Assiniboine has. We have 100 kids at that school, and I know there's more than 100 kids going into the schools in Whitecourt, Mayorthorpe, or Hip. So the question I think we have to ask ourselves as a community and as a council is, how are we actually going to try to figure out how we're going to do community development in a more comprehensive way? And I think if I look at the overall picture, I see 7 moms in that school, of which there are a couple there every day for that breakfast program. In the community, I see 15 or 16 people who are basically the community entertainment group that do a lot of volunteer work. And a lot of times the rest of the community just accepts that that's the way it is. So if we're going to be funding some of it, we should, not saying we shouldn't fund it, I think we should have a better system in the way that we do fund it. Because I don't expect that the taxpayer of the Whitecourt side here supports specific programs on the east side as much as they don't expect to support programs that don't benefit them here. So we should figure out in our tax policies maybe how we do a levy or something like that is available for sustainable funding for organizations like this that are community building organizations. So I agree with you, Dave, that it's unique, but I really struggle with us constantly being approached by different groups where there's a need in trying to figure out how we do it fairly. Because as a council, we shouldn't be picking winners and losers. We should be figuring out how we do community development in a comprehensive way. So I can't help but support, I support the process that it goes through, but I think that we can do better. And I think that I would like to see this go to a real discussion both to the tax policy folks and that we get community development become part of how we figure out how we're going to do a good job in making sure that that these people don't constantly come to us like beggars, asking for. I think when I look at what's happened in the provinces is that there's continuously a download, and the minute that you download anything, there's an advantage taken. And what I see in this particular case is that we have a very, very vibrant, active, incredibly motivated parent society there. They've raised more money for that school than you can ever imagine. But what happens is the minute that those folks raise that money, the school division doesn't give them as much anymore, which is unfortunate. It's what happens. And I'd like to see that stopped. I think we have to figure out a better way.
Councillor Dean, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to administration, specifically Heather, pardon me, the $4,000 grant from the Alberta government, it was my understanding during the presentation that that grant was no longer available to this group. Am I wrong in that?
They're mentioning it, that they receive it in their letter. I cannot, sorry, through the chair to Councillor Dean, I can't confirm that they are not receiving it. We were just, I understand that they get it.
Okay. Yeah.
They do mention it, so they get 4,000, and then the next year would be 1,600. So over the year and a half that they're requesting, they get about 56. And right now, that's what my understanding is they're using for the program.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
And also, I guess, so for you too, that discussion I had with the community lunchbox program is they've actually reached out with Heather and kind of guided them in a couple other directions for funding that weren't, I guess, as available to them, just more information and sharing. So hopefully they can kind of run with that stream too and get this program going a little bit better down the road. So, Councillor Prestige.
Through the chair to administration, if we do fund this, is it in our budget?
Through the chair to Council Prestige, no, it is not. This is an unbudgeted expense. However, there is, I believe, that's why you're having these discussions. You could have it when you go into your next ones, depending on the amount, but there was no money set aside for this. This is an unbudgeted request.
Your worship, through to Councillor Prestige and others indicating for 2023. Administration has allocated funds in the 2024 budget for this project, as anticipating that if council does something, then it's already allocated and we don't have to amend the budget in front of you today.
Councillor Prestige.
Through the chair to CEO. So if we put it in the 2024 budget for this project, I'm sure we're gonna get requests from other organizations to do this. Is there money set aside there for future stuff?
Your worship, through to Councillor Prestige, no, there are no additional funds.
So we would have to deny them then?
Through to the chair, through to Councillor Prestige, our council does have contingency. I'm going to refer to Mr. World, and what's the term where we put the additional funds that accumulated surplus? Is that where you're allocating the additional fund?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah. So there is money available that is unallocated in the 2024 budget based on accumulated surplus from previous years.
Mr. Dean.
That council could, sorry, Your Worship, that council could allocate funds to anything.
Through the chair to administration. So the RFD in front of us at the bottom, just before cost and source of funding, says these contemplated amounts are not currently in the 2023 or 2024 budget. And you're saying that in the 24 budget, money has been set aside, or is it just sitting in accumulated surplus?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Dean, I refer that to Councillor World because the Mr. World made adjustments at a request after this came to council. So, Mr. World.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Dean. So we did find out about this funding request prior to making our final budget adjustments for one other item. So I did add those funds into the budget as a separate item under contributions to community groups operating costs.
Okay.
So it's in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rose.
So, through the chair to administration, I guess, we had a discussion it was quite a while ago, and we talked about changing some of the community grants. And we talked about the term seed money. And the idea was that we were going to move in a direction where there was a supportive structure for some of these programs to stand up on their own, and that council would support that at the time. And we kind of had that three-tiered, like there wasn't an application past 2 years, wasn't there? We talked about that at one point. Did that ever get written into policy? Because I came off that board at that time.
Through the chair to Councillor Burrows, I believe we were talking about that through the FCSS process. Is that on the board?
I thought it was through the community grants because we had talked about funding some of these, because there's no shortage of organizations that are, and this is a bad example because it's the kids and everything, but the idea was that groups, community groups and some of these types of things would come in search of quote-unquote seed money, which the idea of seed money is that, you know, you get a crop out of it the first year, and then you set aside some of that crop for seed the next year, and you've stood up on your own. So there was a process that we were looking at of, you know, having a plan when they apply, that they're aware that the funding will drop off after, you know, 2 or 3 years or whatever the plan was. You remember that discussion?
I believe that was with, sorry, through the chair, Councilor Burrows, I believe that was with recreation and arts and culture grants that we do.
Okay.
Not the operating and capital grants that we do for community organizations. Those are organizations that maintain community halls throughout.
Yeah.
So we did talk about that there, and it does state in those policies that this is seed money, that we do anticipate that they will become self-sustaining at some point.
Mm-hmm.
However, this group doesn't fit into the parameters of that policy, as it's not a recreation or an arts and culture program. And they wouldn't fit in the operating grant and capital grant, the parameters of that policy, because they don't operate a community hall. So they're kind of that floater, and these other groups that we do anticipate that could come forward are in that same boat. They really don't fit in some of the parameters of our other funding policies.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of those are meant to keep things here, they're not as broad. If that
More
answers
than
your
anything, I
question.
just wanted to kind of get that in. Councillor Coulton, you were kind of addressing, you know, how do you deal with this going forward? And we have talked about that kind of idea, so there might be another mechanism to create something around that. But I'm in support of the first portion of 5,000.
Councillor Wilhelm?
Through the chair, I was just gonna add the conversation, I was gonna say I was in favor of this second option as well. Just, I think the program is important, and it might be a gap in community funding that we could maybe look at our grant funding models and see if we can cover that gap in another way. But I think this program's pretty important for Fort Assiniboine, and I didn't mind option 2 simply because it covers them for this school year, and we would hope then by the end of this school year they'd have other funding options available to them by working with the other community groups and with the government.
And that was part of their conversation. They came to us was that they have these other grants they've applied for that they are waiting for. They are hoping that this is a one-time ask. So this doesn't fit into a lot of the other grants that we have and a bunch of other asks, but it's also kind of an investment into the youth that are up there too, and trying to help with that school and at least the viability of what we have up there. I know, like we've said, all of us have said that this might open us up to other asks from other groups, but as far as, we'll say, from the public advantage, this is a one-time thing that we're trying to do just to help them get their program going in a lot of these other communities that already have programs going. And I don't want to see people, especially a lot of these younger students, not have that same opportunity that some of the other kids have going to other schools where they have more of a community to be able to pull from and be able to offer this, and just have them miss out on that, that experience for their younger development portion. So if we end up with flack or whatever from the public from this, I'm willing to stand in front of it, because I do support helping them at least get the program going. Councillor Wilhelm and Councillor Prestige.
Through the chair to administration, just a question about the logistics of it then, either with option 1 or option 2, depending on how we want to go. With option 2, then would a portion of that 11,000 come out of 2023 and then a portion come out of 2024, or the entire portion goes to 2024? How would that work budget-wise?
Yeah, Your Worship, through to Councillor Wilhelm, depending on your motion, Council can take it either from the 2023 budget, if which isn't has any funds allocated to that. However, administration anticipated that council was going to give some money, so we allocated the entire amount in the event. So if council takes it from the 2024 budget in the new year, we can release the funds.
Councillor Prestige.
through the chair to administration and council. I think we should do this as a startup seed money and not for ongoing organizations. So like if we went one-time grant for startup seed money instead of just seed money. What do you think?
Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, through the chair to council and administration. I think the discussion around table really, for me, is saying as well that I think we really need to figure out if we should be having a look at having a community development funds that are specifically designated, because we're as diverse within our own municipality with different challenges, Anselmo, Fort Assiniboine, Whitecourt East, Whitecourt West. We have completely different needs that are being addressed, so it serves a purpose for us, I think, to figure out how we're going to continue down this path and have a community development strategy that's regionally based with their unique characteristics, and maybe have a conversation with our administration, who is much more aware of the challenges that are there through FCSS and community services. And then this might help us sort this out a little bit.
Councillor Wilhelm?
Hope you guys don't mind, but I'm just gonna make a motion that council approve a one-time grant for seed money for the Fort Assiniboine Parent Society breakfast program of, hold on a second, $11,582 from the 2024 budget based on their 2023 to 2024 year ending in June 2024.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any discussion on that motion from council? Not seeing any, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that one is carried. Councillor Burrows?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just following up on Councillor Coolkins, could we, how did you call it? Community development?
Community development, yeah.
Could we make a motion to send something around community development, a discussion to council and through the GNP meeting, so that we just have that on the agenda and we're better prepared to figure out something like this in the future?
Mr. Frank?
Your worship, members of council, if council wants, they could provide a motion to have a discussion for a community development fund at the January, I would, if you allow February's, that gives us time to do some research. February's governance and priorities meeting.
I'll amend that discussion. How about if it goes to the Community Services Board first and then gets bumped up to the GNP from Community Services? And then we've got a bit of a proper process there. Is that acceptable with council?
That's what I was gonna say.
If that's acceptable, then I'll.
Were you able to craft something there for a motion? Jerry, you got it? A motion to send community development to the Community Services Board for discussion and then to come to GP. Is that the gist of what you had there, Councillor Rose?
Yeah.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any discussion on that motion? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Councillor Wilhelm, I see you had your hand up there.
I was just gonna make a motion that the Fort Assiniboine Parent Society provide a final report detailing the usage of funds, including a budget to council by the end of the 2024 school year.
A motion on the floor. Any good discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. I call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, through the chair to administration. One of the things that I'm just curious about, would those funds be released to the parent society? Because they're the ones that made the request, because I actually had a conversation with the principal yesterday, asking where that money would go, and I said it would go to the parent society.
Parent Society,
Okay,
through the chair to Councillor Coogan, yeah.
okay.
That's a motion system, the Fort Assiniboine Parent Society breakfast program, so should be with them. again, I just want to, we've had a lot of discussion around this, but this is, through the motion, one time just to get them going. So if there are other groups to come asking, I mean, we can deal with it as it comes in, but we're just trying to get something going for the kids that are up there. 7.2, thank you very much, Heather. Operating capital budget, that's Mr. World.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. You have an RFD before you regarding the 2024 operating and capital budgets. They are in alignment with the Woodlands County Recovery Plan, and based on your discussions that you had in November at the 2 budget discussion meetings, we've prepared a final revised budget for council's direction. We did make 2 changes, one related to your discussion you just had. We did add into the budget the full amount, 16,892, into community grants. And we did make a change on the LGFF funding. We finally received our allocation, and it came in significantly higher than our estimate, which was the 2023 MSI grant. So that had about a $387,000 impact to our funding for our surplus. So at the end of the day, from operations in the budget, we have capital of $3.875 million. We have operating initiatives that council has checked off as approved of $1.8 million. And the net surplus after those adjustments were made is $1.99 million, sitting in the basically what we call our balancing account as per our recovery plan. So for administration is recommending that council adopts the 2024 operating and capital budgets as presented.
Hey, Councilor Wilhelm.
With the chair, Mr. World, we would have to actually amend it because you put the 16,000 in and we only just approved 11,000. So you'd actually have to amend for that dollar value.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilhelm, I would suggest you leave the funds in as is, just because it's easier. We've already had probably 10 different items that have come up that you're going to hear about when we get the budget discussions in March. So this is kind of an ongoing thing. It's another kick at the can later on. You're going to have probably another list of 20 items in the budget in March or more.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion from council? I know we've had a couple days in this. Councilor Dean.
If there's no other discussion, I move that council adopts the 2024 operating and capital budgets as presented.
Hey, thank you. Motion on the floor. Any discussion from council? Councilor Burrows.
So I just, while we have Mr. World on the call, so through the chair to Mr. World, I just want to be very clear that we're basing this budget on 3% increase in revenue based on last year's revenue, so that we get that understood right now. Is that correct?
But through the chair to Council Burrows, that's correct. So it's 3% for of a tax increase based on 2023 taxes.
Right. Not necessarily a mill rate change, a revenue.
Mill rate, definitely nothing to do with the mill rate. The mill rate will be the number that we plug to balance to the 3%.
Sorry, I just wanted
Yeah,
to
no.
make sure we're crystal clear on that. Thank you.
Fair enough. Any other any more discussion from council? Not seeing any. Call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, Andrew. New business, 8.1, draft policy 1520, asset retirement obligations. Mr. World.
Your worship, through the chair or the council, Gord was going to present this on my behalf, but since I'm here, I might as well do it myself, if that's okay, Mr. Frank.
Absolutely, it's yours.
So it's a pretty straightforward issue. It's been on the agenda for a while, and it's something that's kind of got pushed away by the county in terms of moving this along. This has been around since August 2018, when the PSAB started having discussions around asset retirement obligations. And they've actually passed the standard, and it was effective beginning April 1, 2022. That's if you want early adoption. The county is required to meet this obligation by January 1st, 2023. So in other words, we've got to have this done by our year end. And essentially the obligation is to look at all your assets, all your TCA capital, and determine where you have legal liability obligations for environmental reclamation, environmental standards. At the end of the day, a good example would be a landfill, where you have a requirement to reclaim that landfill when you're done using the asset. So what you set up in our records would be an obligation so that you have annually what they call accretion expense, and you would build up enough funds annually over the life of the asset that you would have enough money put away that you would have the cash on hand to pay for the reclamation or whatever the item is. But it has to be based on environmental standards or based on lease agreements where we've made commitments, like our gravel pits. So it's essentially something that has to get done. If we don't complete this project, we will get a qualified audit opinion. There's a number of municipalities that are in a similar situation as us, so we're not the only one that's against the timing here. We have contracted a company to assist us. We met yesterday with them, Andre, myself, and Lan, and we've got a plan forward. We have to provide them with some detailed information. They'll do the valuations, and the plan is to have the report done by February 28th, 2024, and put our financial statements effective January 1st, 2023, and then record the expense for 2023, which would be an unbudgeted item. Materiality, we don't know for sure. We don't expect it to be a really large amount, just given the fact that you save the money over time. So you don't set up your liability for the obligation today. You set it up for the obligation in 25 years or 10 years or 15 years. And the goal is you actually then put those costs in your tax base for an annual, for your taxes on an annual basis, so that you're not charging the ratepayers at the end of the day in 1 year, saying, oh, in 2045, you got to pay $1 million for reclamation of a landfill, and we have to tax them for it. So the goal is to have those liabilities set up. And I think it'll be fairly clean. I don't think we're going to have a tremendous list of assets, but asbestos is one of the issues we have to deal with. If we have any asbestos in buildings or in water lines or sewer lines, we have to identify those potential obligations. So we don't know the number yet, and we'll report back to council in February, and then we'll have to adjust the 2024 budget once we know what the number is. Again, I asked the consultant about materiality yesterday, and he said most municipalities are surprised that it's not as big a number as they thought. So I've created this policy. I'd like to thank the MD of Greenview, which basically helped us develop this policy. They've implemented it already. They're further down the line than we are, and I would recommend that council approve policy 1520, asset retirement obligation, or approve the policy for approval.
Okay, any discussion on this from council? Sounds like it's something that's coming down the line. Councillor Prestige?
I'll make a motion, council approve policy 1520, asset retirement obligation.
Motion on the floor, Councillor Kuchen?
Yeah, just a question through the chair to Andrew. Those assets which are jointly used by like the landfill, who is how does that play into the picture?
So through the chair to Councillor Kulkin. So that is one of our problems is the landfill. So because it's a regional authority and we don't put it into our audited financial statements, we require them to do their own ARO obligation. And my understanding is they're doing that. They're saving funds in reserves to reclaim the landfill at some point in time. Our auditors would like us to put the landfill in our audited financial statements, and we've been pushing back on that at this point in time. And if that was the case, then we would have to take on those obligations. We'd have to take on half those obligations in our financial statements. We're staying with the fact that the authority's doing it, and as long as they're meeting the obligation to have a reclamation liability set up, we're comfortable with that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Not seeing any, I call the question, all in favor? That one's carried. Thank you again, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Okay, 8.2, Deputy Director of Emergency Management, Mr. Shep. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Your Worship and Council. Today I bring forward the discussion of Deputy Director of Emergency Management. This position is vitally key in regards to emergency management, and as we all know, as what we saw this past summer and spring. Woodlands County hired on Miss Beverly Gillibrand in November of last year. She's our health and safety coordinator. And within that position, the Deputy Director of Emergency Management falls to. Ms. Gillibrand was again a part of the Woodlands County Emergency Management team during the 2023 wildland fires and flooding incidents. She was in many roles, had many hats on, but she was a vital key part of the team for those incidents. Mrs. Gillibrand has taken many emergency management training and is committed to emergency management, and she is still taking more training once things do come up through Alberta Emergency Management Agency. So bring this forward. I've had discussions with Ms. Gillibrand about this position, and she again is committed to helping and being a part of that structure, following the incident command system, and working with me to facilitate a large-scale tabletop exercise down the road.
Hey, any questions for Mr. Shep? Councillor Wilhelm?
A motion the council appoints Mrs. Beverly Gillibrand as Deputy Director of Emergency Management for Woodlands County.
Motion on the floor, any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor? Sorry, that's carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Transfer station operations. Morning, Steve.
Good morning, good evening, Council. Just a little bit of background. There's been over the last number of years, there's been a lot of vandalism in our transfer sites. There's been a lot of after-hour usage, which is not authorized, but don't seem to stop a lot of people. The last few years, our repair and replacement cost of the county it's increased considerably. With the chains being cut, locks tore off, broken gates, cleanup of all the illegal dumping is becoming pretty much a weekly occurrence on all the transfer sites right now. We tried a number of different ways, different locking mechanisms, different gate styles. We've tried trail cams, all have either been broken, stolen, or they find a way through no matter what. It's to the point now, it's been to the point now for a number of years where our transfer site staff they removed their heaters. We've had our propane heaters stolen out of a number of sites as well. They remove their heaters, they remove their first aid kits, they take their fire extinguishers away with them because if they leave it behind, it disappears. So what we're looking at is cleaning some of the trees in front of the transfer sites, between the roads and the transfer sites. This will be, the increased visibility will reduce complications given the transfer site staff work alone. This will help increase visibility for the health and safety of our staff. Another thing that we're looking at is the take it or leave it areas at the transfer sites. It's used to be a valuable thing, but it's I think past where it's become valuable. People are just leaving their unwanted items, junk, and they're trying to leave very weather sensitive items, which then on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, our infrastructure staff is having to go through and help the transfer site operators dispose of all this stuff because most things are too big for those guys to handle. So we're just looking at getting rid of those and taking that program out of our transfer sites as well. I think that pretty much sums up what I'm.
I do agree on that, the take it or leave it part there for the, I guess, the unwanted items. Talking with the people at the Anselmo transfer station, and there was a request for them, I think it was about a year ago, just to close the program down because it was just garbage that was basically being left there. And I know, again, with that transfer site, I mean, the gates and the fence and everything, there's a lot of time you've been out there repairing stuff. My question I have though is, we'll say, we have the trees and stuff, and from the people driving down the road, visibility wise, I understand it makes it harder to see what's in there, but it also makes it harder to see the piles and everything from the road, from the transfer station, for people just, commuting through the area. So in the interest of sightliness, what's the plan then for the transfer sites on that? As a resident, you have that there, but I also don't want to be driving down the way to the hall and see all the piles and everything sitting there from the road.
We constantly are working with different organizations to get, as the piles accumulate, to get rid of them. We've just, this last little while, we've had arrangements with a metal contractor out of the Fort Assiniboine area, Parkhead area, somewhere down that way, to do regular visits to pick up so that those piles don't increase too much. The tire guys, we try to get them to come on a regular basis. The one I have issue dealing with quickly is the wood debris piles. Because, as you know, right now, I can't burn them or do anything with them right now because it's just the conditions don't let me do so, to do with them properly. So that is a concern, visibility, yes.
Councillor Wilhelm?
Through the chair to administration, do we have security cameras set up at any of the transfer stations?
They've been stolen in the past.
Through the reef to council, no. We've tried it in the past and they've been broken or stolen or they just disappear. Plus, security cameras in other facilities, they let us see what people do, but they're never good enough for identification to do anything with.
Councillor Dean?
Through the chair to Steve, I note that the cost, your estimated cost is $1,500. It looks like a lot of trees based on this one diagram that's shown. $1,500 is gonna be able to remove all those trees?
Through the reef to councillor, we should be able to, because a lot of the stuff we can do with our own equipment. And in some of the areas, we can actually monetize some of the wood to recover some of the costs.
Okay.
Any other discussion from council? I do agree with trying to make it more visible, try to keep the people out. My big concern is just gonna be people driving down the road and how we're gonna hide some of that, just the piles of garbage and debris from people coming down the road. At least with the tree line, it's like having a large fence so you don't see it, but. Councilor Burrows?
Through the chair to, I guess, council, could we try this? The only thing, I'm worried about the sightliness issue as well, and plus the, when you pull down a lot of trees, you can make tremendous wind problems, which start scattering things all over the place. So could we compromise maybe, so this whole box is what you want cleared out in the way of trees?
Through to the reef to the councillor. If this is just an example of say the leasing area that we have with this particular transfer site. The main road is obviously at the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
So we'd only be looking for just kind of like a little section basically right here.
Yeah, and I guess when I look at it, I'm thinking if we started off with maybe half that.
Yeah, well,
To
gate area
open it up
towards-
to the gate area, so that, I mean, you don't need to see it way back there on the edge of the quarter. Nobody's gonna. I don't know, I don't like the idea of knocking everything down.
Councilor Wilhelm?
Through Chair to Administration again, I guess with regards to the cameras, like how long ago was it that we had cameras at these sites?
Through the read to counselor, it's been a few years since we've tried it. We've had trail cam pictures of particular individuals' vehicles, and we've gone through the RCMP, and there's never been anything that's actually ever happened out of that.
I can understand with trail cams, they're typically not high resolution, but security cameras in this day and age are clearer than any TV screen that you're on. Like, I mean, and you can set up motion detection on them for specific hours so that they trigger and start recording when they see anybody sending alerts. Like if you could live watch somebody smashing your camera and drive out there in 5 minutes and catch them doing it. I mean, all I see happening here is we remove it, take it or leave it. People are still going to dump their stuff there, whether there's a sign there to take it or leave it or not. If it's an ongoing security issue, I think we solve it with security, not with.
The one that we have here, the example for, like, this is the Insamo transfer station. I know this one here, like, a lot of the issue that we have isn't so much our residents as people across the county coming in. And the problem they were having with trying to get any type of decent resolution camera or anything Wi-Fi related is there is very limited to no Wi-Fi in this spot to start with. So again, if we want to put cameras with it, again, we're looking at more, something for the signal, whether it's a hub or whatever to put in there. But we also have issues with the office and stuff they have out there being constantly broken into as well. And that was part of, like you said, we've had heaters stolen out of the buildings, and we've had, I do understand it would be nice to have more cameras or more out there, but I think that's just.
Well, I don't understand. How do we stop it by just taking away a take it or leave area? It's just going to keep happening over and over and over again.
The take it or leave it area, there's again with this one here, it's just a shed for if you had, say, a lamp or something else. It's not really junk, but you don't really want. That's what the take it or leave it. This also has that there's a bin for your garbage. There's which is in this one here, clogged up at night. You back up around, it's got a large spin, you dump everything in, you got the metal piles, you got the your wood, your tires and everything kind of around here. But what we're having issues, I know with this one, is people coming in, cutting the gates, cutting the, breaking the gate, cutting the fence, getting in there and just dumping, because you can't access the bin where your regular garbage goes, and they just leave it on the ground. The take it or leave it, that was more of a, we'll say, in my opinion, that one's more of a nuisance to the people who are working there, because the stuff that typically you put on like a marketplace or whatever where people could just take, because it's not really junk, it's maybe outdated, it's old, it's something that's still usable, it's allows for it, but it's turned into where people just left stuff that shouldn't be there. And that was from the operators from our transfer station here, conversations that I have had with them, is it was becoming more of a nuisance because the stuff that was left shouldn't have been left in there. It should have been over to the other bin for the garbage. Andre?
Through the chair to council. So one of the other issues we have at these sites is we get people that come in after hours when it's dark. We get, not so much the Anselmo one, but Doris Creek, Goose Lake. We get people that go in there after hours when it's dark that have stolen wire. And what they'll do is, in the middle of the site in the gravel, they'll start a fire, burn the casing off the wire, take the wire, leave. They go through the metal bins, and then we have to clean up the mess. So increasing the visibility should eliminate them having fires, because they'll be seen from a distance. We did have additional wiring at one time, and what we found is that they were cutting the wires right at the transfer site and stealing that, burning it also. I think security cameras, Wi-Fi is an issue at 2 of the sites. You're going to be running power. You're going to have increased costs. I don't think it's going to solve much, but I think opening up the visibility will help improve and reduce people going in at night. And as far as the cleanliness, we will just have to, as an operation, ensure that we keep a tidy site now that it's going to be more visible.
Is Councillor Williams and Councillor Coogan?
I don't think clearing the trees will hurt anything by no means, but I'm in agreement. Like, if there was cameras there, I get there's costs, but somebody that's gonna be there burning copper or stripping wire or doing anything, they're gonna be there for a while. If it sets off motion, alerts somebody, you call the RCMP, they probably would be there while they're still there screwing around. But I just, at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, the Doris dump is on a gravel road, not very visible from the highway, even if those trees are gone. Not many vehicles driving by at those hours anyways to catch somebody. I don't know. It's impossible to stop everybody, but if there was cameras up on a pole or something hidden or even visible but hard to get to, I think you'd have a better chance of catching somebody. That's my opinion. Cameras are so good now, they don't pick up animals, pick up vehicles and people. I have one at my house and it works great, never sets off anything else. But I don't know, my opinion.
Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, through the chair to Andre. Are these people going, right, cutting the chains off, going through the gates and into the site for this? Or is it?
Through the chair to Councillor Culkin, they were. We don't even lock the sites anymore because the chains were getting cut and the locks were getting cut so much that it was almost every 2 weeks we were replacing chains and locks. So they're not locked anymore.
Okay, and that brings my second. We had a situation close to home where this individual was cleaned out several times. And so he put in a very interesting gate system so they couldn't drive into his property. And that stopped it. And it was basically heavy enough, you can't cut the locks like chain link fences and all that. That stuff is, it's a way to keep people out, but you can get a pair of bolt cutters and get in. You can't get into this property anymore. So maybe that is an option. I don't know. Just so that you can put a good enough gate there that can't be removed or the locks can't be taken off.
We'll say this one here for the Ensemble one, just again as an example, I know they put heavier gates on and they kept replacing the gates, replacing the locks. And when the gates became an issue, they started going to the fence.
Okay, yeah,
Like,
that's,
the fence 10 feet over, I think it was probably a couple times a year we were out there fixing and replacing. They got large rocks and everything and they just kept moving further down to get in.
okay.
So
Oh, yeah, that's fair. I just.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't work in some cases. That's just this one and my experience with.
Yeah.
Councillor Prestige?
Through the chair to the council administration. So if we want to do security, we have a cost. Like there's no electricity to this site or Goose Lake. So we'd have to rely on solar panels and stuff. So you can have a fairly large cost to put the security system in, which may not work, or do we just spend the money and keep cleaning it up? So
I know we've debated this a lot, just from council. What's Councillor Groat?
So, through the chair to the rest of council, my concern here is this, and I tend to try and look at this as a more principled issue in the fact that you've got a few bad apples that are wrecking the site and causing issues, and then you're gonna mitigate that by cutting all the trees down around this and possibly making it kind of not all that visually attractive. We'll stop short of calling it an eyesore. But so the residents in the area kind of get punished for the behavior of these bad actors. What I would suggest is that we get another option on this, just around the security idea, and see what that's going to cost us before we go knock all these trees down and can't go back. And even if you were to knock the trees down, maybe go half, but wiping out that whole stand there, that's really going to make the area look funky. But that would be my recommendation, is that we just ask administration to bring this back with a security option, with a more robust security option. And also, I'd like to know how much we're spending on cleanup on this, because like, the illegal dumping is a problem all over the place. We get it everywhere. I mean, we've got money in the budget to rappel down the, what is it, cold and fish out all the living room suites that are dumped off of that thing. So it's unfortunate, and that's something that but I'd just like to see some more options on here. I don't think clear cutting everything and having it wide open like that is, I just don't like the idea of, you're effectively punishing the residents in the area for the behavior of people that don't live there. And I believe in, even if you have to spend a little more money to keep the bad actors out of there, I'd rather do that.
As far as the time frame, Steve, would you be able to, say in February, bring back an RFD with possible options for viable cameras and, you know, kind of different security or alternatives, and then we can have another talk around this?
To the review, I can figure some stuff out and have a look at some different stuff. Another option would be maybe clearing out just some of the brush, leaving mature trees and kind of not opening it wide up, but just increasing it just a slight bit.
Even that would be Councilor Wilhelm?
A motion that council accepts transfer station operations as information.
Okay, motion for discussion on the floor. Call the question on favor. That was carried. And I'd like to make a motion also that administration bring this back to a February meeting with extra costs and alternatives around security at the transfer sites. Any discussion on my motion? Not seeing any. Call the question on favor. That's carried. We'll get through another one here, guys, and we'll take a quick break. 8.4, subdivision extension. Thank you very much, Steve. Good morning, Joan.
Good morning, Worship and Council. So we have in front of us this morning an application for time extension on subdivision application 2022 sub 11, located on Southwest 21618. This is the first request for time extension. Council can extend that time frame pursuant to the Municipal Government Act. Administration has reviewed the application. It still meets the intent of the Agricultural Rural Estates District. And they're just looking for an additional time extension so that they can finalize the construction of the approaches to the parcels and have met their other conditions.
Wait, council, any discussion on that? Councilor Burrows?
I'll make the motion that council approves the time extension request for subdivision application 2022 SUV 11, December 7th, 2024.
Motion on the floor. Any discussion from council on the motion? Not seeing any. Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. I guess you ask council, you guys want to take a 5-minute break? Or?
Just point towards that. So we have a staff member that I think is presenting 8.5 and 8.6. Perhaps we can get through those two and then take a break afterwards.
Okay, we can continue. Mr. Roach, we'll move on. Sorry, move on to 8.4, 8.5. Sorry, support letter for Groat.
Good morning, your worship and council, and Merry Christmas and season's greetings. My pleasure to be here in front of you today for these two items. First is a support letter for the Growth Regional Economic Development Alliance in support of their application to the NRED program. Going back to the last council meeting, we of course have a application going to this program from Woodlands County as well. However, it is under a different stream. So we don't know what the total amount of funds the province will be committing to the program is, but in conversation with some of our contact, there doesn't seem to be that there would be any kind of a direct sort of conflict, or we wouldn't be competing under the exact same stream. And the two projects are very distinctly different. Of course, rebranding coming from the county, and in regards to this one addressing a very timely topic that we heard much discussion on over the last few weeks in light of COP28 and some of the changes that the federal government has made in regards to greenhouse gases and including methane and all of that. So that's the proposal for the coming from the RETA for their proposal, and this is the support letter that we would have in support of that project.
All right, thank you, Bert. Any discussion? Councillor Kuchen.
Yeah, this is just an example of us being able to leverage some of the money that we put in as a municipality to, move along that whole development process. The question I have to Bert is this 50%? A 50% grant that we have to leverage, or what is the?
My
not
apologies,
sure.
because I'm doing this from memory, but yes, I believe the NRED is 50/50.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so, anytime that we can help create economic opportunities here through these grants, I think we should take advantage of it. So I'll make a motion that council approve the letter of support to Groat RETA application under the NRED program.
And just for clarification, because I know the county has also applied for this, I know you said that it doesn't affect it, I'm just making sure.
Yes, so my understanding is that overall province-wide, it will be a competitive program, but the stream that we've applied for the county's application is under workforce, and then this would be under the capacity building stream. So what they've told me is that there shouldn't be any kind of a direct conflict, and the two projects are very much distinctly different. So we're looking at two important issues facing us. Both applications should have a pretty good chance of success.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Kuchen.
I think part of this also came from, the involvement we had in the carbon sequestering conference, where it became really clear that we as municipalities don't have a real good handle on how we fit into that program. So that's why Growth kind of had to look at this and said, maybe this is something that we can help support our municipalities in understanding.
And any more discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That one's carried. 8.6, Mr. Roach.
Okay, thank you. So moving to the next program, we have an application that we would like to submit under the Small Communities Opportunities Program, which is a new provincial government program. The application deadline is January 10th. The focus of this application would be in regards to enhancing economic diversification and agri-foods growth within Woodlands County. Where the SCOP program differs greatly from the NRED program is, while the NRED program can have a regional focus, the intent of the SCOP is that it will have a community focus. And so with that, you'll find within this proposal, our focus is entirely upon Woodlands County. However, once we have achieved the information that we will be able to gather through the program, we can hopefully share that with our other municipalities that are of a similar size, and possibly with our partners from the Growth RETA and others as well. The program background and program details are there. The county input into the program is over a 24-month period, and in this case, because of the zone of the map that we're in, we are in the northern part of the zone for the application for this program. So it is a 90% to 10% program, and administration and in-kind and meeting hosting costs and those kinds of things can be part of our application. So what we're looking at is over 2 years from the existing economic development budget in 2024, and then going on into 2025, we would have up to $10,000 in admin and meeting hosting and some advertising costs that we would absorb naturally through those budgets. So that would be the county's contribution. And then there's some other details there under the rationale. The two main parts of the application would be to do an Agri-Foods local market and logistics study. We've seen a rise in the production of our local foods and local ag products, and so helping our producers to fully understand what are some of the close-by marketplaces and market opportunities for them to bring their goods to market to is a key component of the program. The second part of the program is to do a rural economic development best practices benchmark study, which under the EDRAP program, the Economic Development Rural Alberta Plan, they have given us a very well-defined definition of what is rural. And that is what they've used to establish this SCOP program. So a community under 20,000, 100 kilometers away from a larger community with a large natural resource base. So Woodlands County definitely fits under that rural definition. But under that rural definition that the province has wheeled out, we've never actually done a comparative study on what is being done in other municipalities of a similar size for economic development. What are the best practices? What are folks doing? How do our efforts measure up? And that's the intention of what we would get from that benchmark study.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion from council on this? Councillor Dean?
I'd move that council endorses the SCOP application for enhancing economic diversification and agri-foods growth in Woodlands County.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any discussion from council on that? Not seeing any. Call the question. All in favor? That one's carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Roach.
Thank you very much, council.
With that, we take a quick break to 10:45, 8 minutes. We're kind of at the midpoint of the agenda.
water bin.
Okay, we're back. On to 8.7, Human Resource Committee. Mr. Frank.
Your worship, members of council, this is a recommendation from your governance and priorities committee to remove the committee.
Where you turns off.
Okay.
with fountain.
Any discussion on that?
That's ours, but the rest is.
Council Prestige?
I'll make a motion that council remove the human resource committee
It's private.
as a council committee.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. Call the question. All in favor? That one's carried. 8.8, Groat Creek Erosion Repairs.
Your worship, members of council, as a result of the June rains, high water event, there was severe erosion on Groat Creek, which affected the guardrail and the bank of Groat Creek. McLean Engineering came up with the design. It was tendered. 3 bids were sent out. 1 was received in the amount of $129,535, Stride Horse Engineering. A claim will be filed with the DRP for reimbursement to the county. Some of the work will take place this year. Bulk of it 2024. Some will be done in January. The rest will wait until warmer weather. And the recommendation, the council awards the Woodlands County Erosion Repair on Groat Creek tender to Stride Horse Enterprises for the tendered amount of $129,535 plus taxes.
Okay, any discussion from council? Council Burrows?
Just one, under the DRP funding, is that full amount available to repeat?
Through the chair, I believe pretty much all of it, yes.
90%.
90%.
Council Burrows?
With that, I'll make the recommendation make the motion that council awards the Woodlands County Erosion Repair on Groat Creek tender to Stride Horse Enterprises for the tendered amount of $129,535 plus taxes.
Motion on the floor. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. 8.9, FCSS cost sharing with the town of Whitecourt. Hello again, Heather.
Good morning, Reeve and Council again. So before you today is a request in regards to our FCSS funding. We have entered into an agreement with FCSS, with the province, for the next 3 years. And this is our first year of those 3 years. The agreement is attached with the amounts. And so we're looking for your approval for a cost share with the town of Whitecourt. Right now, we have our own programs where we deliver our grants and our other programming, and we utilize those funds. We also have an agreement for FCSS with the town of Marathon, and our Anselmo and Blue Ridge residents typically go to that FCSS. And we also have an agreement with the Barrhead and District FCSS for our Goose Lake and Fort residents to go. And then our surrounding population usually goes to the town of Whitecourt for their FCSS programs. So we're looking at, we'd like to utilize all the funds. If we don't utilize all the funds that we get from the province, we have to put a request in, what can we do with our surplus funds? So this cost share would completely use up all the funds that we have received from the province. It is an 80-20 split. Province is 80%, 20% is ours. So when we're reporting to the province, then this would totally use up all of our funds for FCSS for the 2023 year.
Hey, any discussion? Councilor Dean?
Through the chair to Heather, can you compare this level of service and this budgeted amount to what we just recently approved with respect to Barrhead providing FCSS services at Fort Assiniboine? So we had a presentation last council meeting when we were in Fort Assiniboine, and what I remember was the budgeted amount that that had been put into our budget was on the order of 58,000.
Yes.
And so what level of services does that provide versus this? Tough question.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Dean. We typically don't get some reporting for how many of our residents actually participate or take advantage of the services in the town of Whitecourt. We know that they don't turn anybody away. We know that through the ACF, there was some agreements on what services are provided. I don't actually have numbers. I know that this amount that we're going into for the 2024 year with Barhead, their levels of service will be increased. They're gonna see more, we're gonna see that there's gonna be more actually in our community as opposed to our residents in the surrounding area traveling into Whitecourt for those services. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but, so I can't give you exact numbers until we actually get going next year on these programs. And now that, and going forward with the town of Whitecourt, we can ask for numbers.
Sure.
And what services exactly. We know that our residents can take advantage of any of the services that the town provides through FCSS.
Okay, so
They
maybe,
don't limit it to,
fair enough. So perhaps this question is better asked next year once we've got some.
I will have some, through the chair to Councillor Dean, we'll
Okay.
have a little bit more meat to answer that question for you.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion from council? Councillor Williams.
I'll make a motion that council approves the cost share to the town of Whitecourt in the amount of $61,000 from the 2023 FCSS grant as part of the ICF agreement.
A motion on the floor, any discussion on that? Seeing none, call the question, all in favor? One's carried. 8.10, cancellation of the January 3rd regular council meeting. Mr. Frank.
Your worship, due to the holidays, we're asking that administration is back on January 2nd, so we won't have time to prepare an agenda for the 3rd.
Okay, Councillor Coolgan.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that council cancel the January 3rd, 2024 regular council meeting.
Motion on the floor, any discussion? Not seeing any, call the question, all in favor? That's carried. 8.11, Mr. Bashand.
Your worship, members of council, in front of you, you'll find an attachment that was handed out. The RFD, the information in the RFD is correct. The attachment that the town sent me was actually the 2023 budget. So I've handed up 2024 budget. As I said, the information in the RFD is based on the 2024 budget. So the Regional Landfill Authority Board meeting, the last one, the 2024 capital and operating budgets were presented. It identified an increase of 3% for wages, $31,000 increase for transfer site collecting recycling. It was presented to the board, as I said, and approved, pending approval by both municipalities of the town and Woodlands County. The 2024 budget is a 5.5% increase equaling $19,190. Given the lateness of the Whitecourt Regional Landfill 2024 budget, the Woodlands County 2024 budget currently has the same operating expenses as the 2023 budget. However, that'll be amended to reflect the increase of $19,190. Recommendation is that council approves the Regional Landfill Authority 2024 operating and capital budgets in the amount of $366,573.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion from council on this? Councillor Prestige?
I'll make a motion that council approves the Whitecourt Regional Landfill 2024 operating capital budgets in the amount of $366,573.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any discussion from council on that motion? Not seeing any, call the question, all in favor? That's carried. 9.1, I believe we have anything there. No link to it, but,
Was there not a link? Was there no council correspondence?
Oh, I did not get
included, I guess.
Okay, let's move on down. 10.1, councillor reports and questions. Start with councillor Dean.
Excuse me, so I had a fairly late couple weeks since our last meeting. I did attend the Joint Liaison Committee meeting yesterday. And other than regular council activities, that was about it.
Okay, any discussion, councillor Dean? Councillor Williams.
The last little bit I've been sick and my family's been sick, so I have not got up to much besides that, so I don't have much else to do.
Any discussion for councillor Williams? Or councillor Wilhelm?
Yeah, schedule's been light, but we did have our Laxan and Foundation org meeting, selected our chair, etc. Some information came through. I just wanted to share with council what the requisition numbers are for Laxan, and it might be interesting for you guys to hear some of this, but so the Laxan requisition for Woodlands County is $570,950. The requisition amount for Laxan County is $570,000, and the requisition for Whitecourt is $469,000. So you can see there with the current government calculation, Woodlands County provides a significant amount of requisition money for Laxan Foundation. We've got some capital project plans coming up in 2024, and one of my big pushes as part of that committee, or the foundation committee, is to ensure that the new project coming up, the new capital project for a building, occurs in the area of Woodlands County. So I want to make sure that people that live in our region, when they retire and they need to move into one of these homes, are able to stay within our community, Whitecourt or Woodlands, or potentially another location located within Woodlands. We do provide, our taxpayers provide a significant portion of their funding, and I want to make sure that they're represented properly with the infrastructure needs coming up, and making sure there's enough doors and beds for our aging citizens. So I don't know if you guys have known how much we provide in that requisition. It's quite high, and I'd known from previous years and hadn't shared with you guys, but at our board meeting, it reintroduced those numbers to my head, and I wanted to share them with you. And then also, we changed our meeting schedule on that one, and I'll let Corinne know. But we're going to quarterly meetings now instead of meetings every month. We just are finding our agendas were very short, and everyone has to travel from all around the region to a centralized location, and it was just, we decided to go to quarterly meetings just to make the agendas a little bit more full for each meeting. So other than that, I have nothing else.
Okay, any discussion? Councilor Rose.
I just have one question. So based on the numbers that you just talked about, obviously that allocation is not calculated by population. So do you know what the formula is for it specifically? Because it's curious.
It's a percentage of equalized assessment.
Okay.
So our percentage is 30.8. Laxan is 30.9. Whitecourt is 25.3. And then the rest is made up with Onaway, Marathorpe, Summer Villages, smaller locations. So we have 30% of their funding.
And my understanding is as well that the school requisition also works through that type of thing. So you'll see a big chunk coming out of Woodlands again as well, as compared to when you go population size. So just something to keep in mind.
Any other discussion for Councilor Wilhelm? Councilor Prestige.
I've had only two meetings. One was the Eagle Tower Victim Services meeting. We're anticipating closure of the board in September 24. That's the latest that the province has told us. So we're just going over how to shut down the society, do all the paperwork, and what to do with the existing money that we have. And the second meeting was the protective services. I've been pushing to try and get the town of Whitecourt on BARC. And so they applied to BARC to see if they could get on, and we're told the bark system is overloaded. They don't have room to bring anybody else on. So the town is gonna see what it's all entailed to come up with a system of their own, whether they can do it or not. We'll know in the next meeting, which is in March, I think. And the other new thing is, with the police force, it used to be if you arrested somebody and it took 8 to 10 weeks to get a court date, the prosecutors didn't see the arrest till about a week before the court date. So they've changed how they've done that. The prosecutors see the arrest within 2 weeks. And that gives them time to say, we don't think we can have a conviction on this, and that could be based on not enough information in the arrest report, which then gives the officer time to go do more investigation into it to try to get all the information. And what it also does is it cuts down on expenses for the RCMP, because like they could have a transfer to another location up in northern Alberta. They gotta come down to the court for the court date, and that's all been arranged. The replacement for that day or 2 days has been arranged, and they come down and the prosecutor sees it and says, no, can't do anything. So it's a lot of money wasted. So they're hoping by doing this, it'll streamline everything. So hopefully it works. And that's about it.
Discussion with Councilor Prestige? Councilor Kuchen?
Yeah, on the 7th of December, I attended a WILD meeting, which is a kickoff for the next year, to make sure that we get all of the supports in place, that we support the current level of things that they're doing to keep our economic development strategy for the tourism portion as viable and as good as possible. And I think that's going to work out really well, because we've got some new operators, and we're right now just working on setting up the terms of reference for the committees, and the engagement sessions that we're going to be doing with Groat is going to include how we move forward as far as the tourism program and other programs that hopefully will come out of the engagement sessions. Then on the, I believe it was the 13th, on the 12th, we had the Barhead District Social Housing meeting for wage review and that kind of stuff. And one of the things that came up in the discussion is exactly like Jeremy had spoke about, the Laxate and Foundation is a requisition, and there will be no increase in the requisition for that housing division. We're in kind of an enviable position right now, where I think that we determined that there was only going to be a $19,000 deficit between operations, and we felt that that probably will be absorbed by. So there will be no increase in requisition there as far as we can see. Then on the 13th, I attended the Joint Community Services meeting here in Whitecourt. I was a bit confused there as to what my role was there. I guess I was just a guest. I thought I was a representative, so I was willing to make motions and vote and all of that kind of stuff. But I didn't feel so bad afterwards, because Jeremy didn't have an idea what our role was there either. So,
Mr. Frank?
Your worship, members of government, so this is the town of Whitecourt's community services?
yes, they invited us.
And you're not a voting member on that?
I am.
Oh,
We just didn't know
okay.
who
Oh,
it is.
sorry, okay. I
So
was-
about halfway through the meeting, I raised my hand and I'm like, am I a voting member or like, as I said, I've been assigned to this board, and that's when they indicated that I was, and then I started voting on stuff after that.
Okay.
That was interesting because I thought I came there as a voting member, so I was voting and I wasn't really what I was supposed to be. So anyway, we got sorted out. So, but it was really interesting in what they're doing, and I think that we had Woodlands County had really good representation there. I think everybody that sits on that board was there, so it was really a good evening. On the 18th, we had a post-brigade meeting, which was finalizing what the Canadian Voyageur Brigade Society was going to do in joint with the Bicentennial Committee. And what's happened is that the Brigade Society bought a Voyageur canoe, which will become the legacy project for the Bicentennial group. So we'll have a Voyageur canoe that is basically a big thanks from the Brigade Society for the amount of work that was put in and the incredible experience that was for so many people that Woodlands actually sponsored. So they're funding a canoe. We have the Bicentennial group that is going to be providing the trailer and the paddles and life jackets for that, so we can start a program in Fort Assiniboine. And what's really unique about this is that when Change Health released the video to the Brigade Society, they had it up in Hinton, Edson area. They were, showing what the Brigade group did and what the Bicentennial group did. And we now have 3 teachers that are out of that school division that are trying to put a program together for kids to be able to participate. And we also have an interest from Athabasca and, incredibly, the Pembina School Division. So all of a sudden we have created, just from that event, a regional idea of how we can start to do some of this stuff for the social development of our communities. What's really interesting about it is that they would like to use, we have a couple of instructors now that have approached us and would like to use the Blue Ridge Community Rec area as a training ground for not just Voyageur Brigade canoe, but canoeing in general. And so Woodlands has become a bit of a center for that. So I think that, the investment that we made as a county council is just starting to show up as some of the positive community development things that are happening. So then I attended yesterday the annual Christmas dinner at the school, and it was really, really neat to see that these kids helped cook the meal and were doing the serving of the meal at this Christmas dinner, and you could really see that was the next generation of volunteers and kids, because the happiness and the joy that was there was incredible to witness. And so that was kind of the highlight of my week. And that's pretty much it till today.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Poulin? Not seeing any. Councillor Burrows.
Excuse me. So I was sick during the last council meeting. I was not even able to dial into that one. That was a rough go. Anyways, I have had a fairly light board schedule as of late. I did attend the joint liaison committee meeting with the town with Councilor Dean as well. So I have that, and really that's all I've got to report. I'd like to point out something that Councilor Prestige had brought up on the RCMP, that I'm struggling to remember the name, but they call it a kind of a charge evaluation at the RCMP level. And I know years ago, I was called in to, I was subpoenaed because I was a witness to something that happened 6 months ago. And the Crown prosecutor asked, you know, could you identify this person on this event? We had no idea why we were there. And we said no, and the whole thing, you know, got folded up and walked away. And then the guy walked by us and we all went, yeah, that's the guy. And it was funny because you see that the incredible lack of preparation, and I don't know whether it's timing or the way they have their system or whatever it is, but I think that change, you know, really specifically around getting the charge out, getting in touch with the Crown prosecutor. The Crown prosecutor says, nope, this is not going to work the way it is. We need more. And the RCMP learns how to build a better case and you know, learns how to charge. It's frustrating sometimes, but it is the way the system works, and I think it's going to make a big difference in the way that comes across. So it's something that we ran across meeting with the RCMP at the RMA level. So really good bit of cross back and forth with justice. That's it for me, unless there's questions.
Any questions for Councilor Burrows? Not seeing any, I guess, mine fairly light also. We also did have the joint Christmas dinner at the town with the casino. Very well represented from both municipalities. Glad to see them show up. I had a joint liaison meeting yesterday. I was invited to the community lunchbox. They had a lunch kind of appreciation meal for a lot of the volunteers they had. So it was nice seeing a lot of the people there and hearing the stories and, you know, the involvement and everything that they do. Had a library board meeting with Whitecourt. It's kind of their wrap up for the year, fairly light schedule, just kind of going over some of the items that they have coming up over the next month. And other than that, I had the EGM for the Salmo Egg Society. Voted in a couple new members and just kind of touched on a lot of the highlights throughout the year from the whole. But nothing very major over the last 2 weeks. Any questions? Councillor Wilhelm.
Motion that council accepts council reports and questions as information.
Motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Mr. Frank, CAO report.
Your worship, members of council, last Friday we had, Andre and I had the opportunity to cook breakfast for the office staff here, and then on Monday morning we got up really early and did it in the fort, and yesterday we did it at the shop here yesterday, so it was very much appreciated by the staff, and we had to keep cooking more and more because we found out that people were hungry in the morning, so it was really good to see that. Joint liaison yesterday, as well as to let council know that we do have 2 individuals retiring in 2024 at the end of February. Mr. Ivan Gerard will be equipment operator, will be trading in his operator's license to decide to take it easy. So, and then in July, Mr. Bachon has announced his retirement, so, and has given us time to recruit to that position. On Friday, we are interviewing 2 individuals for the Director of Corporate Services, and this week the auditors were here virtually to start their prep for their audits, and that's all I have, Your Worship.
Right. I want to thank you guys for cooking for the staff there. I was hoping to be there, but things kind of took a little bit of change for me. Any questions for Mr. Frank?
Must be good cooks.
We are.
We are.
Right, not seeing anything. Can I get a motion to accept the CAO report? Councillor Burrows?
I'll make a motion to accept the CAO report.
Motion on the floor. Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Down to the November 2023 service tracker.
Your worship and council, attached is the service tracker report for November 2023. Fairly standard with the requests we received regarding grading mostly. And as mentioned last council meeting, there was a few questions regarding the speed limit signage being posted in subdivisions.
Councillor Dean.
Through the chair to Nikita, further to that, when you say a few, was the nature of the conversation, why is there a sign or why is it that speed limit? What was the conversation?
From what I can tell through the service tracker report, it was both questions. Why is it there and why is it that speed?
Councillor Wilhelm.
Through the chair to council and I guess administration as well, but just with regards to bylaw, I've had some really good experiences with Lac-Saint-Anne County bylaw enforcement lately. And just a reminder for anybody that's listening, on top of putting a bylaw enforcement request into our service tracker for the municipality, the best way you can get actionable or action from the bylaw enforcement is to contact them directly. Because of FOIP issues, they don't get all the information that you provide through the service tracker, so it's better to call them if you want to have a quicker reaction and have them deal with that situation. So just for anybody listening.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coogan.
Yeah, on the same vein, I just have a question to administration on livestock at large. Is there a policy, because as far as the bylaw officer has said to me is that there's a thing for dogs, but there's no real specific for livestock in our policy. I don't know if that's correct or not, but we have a constant thing, like there was a Jersey bull that was chasing people around in the neighbor's yard last week again, and it's the same complaint, and the bylaw officer did go there. But I guess the problem is that he has is that there's no specific thing on livestock being on county roads. So I'm not sure how that works, but maybe just so that you guys can have a look at that and see whether or not there's an issue there.
Yeah, I've noted it, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Williams.
I'll make a motion that council accepts the service tracker November 2023 report as information.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. It takes us down to committee of the whole. Councillor Wilhelm.
Just through the chair to administration, for the 11.2, which FOIP section do we?
It's 21.
That's correct. 21.
I'll make a motion to move into committee whole under FOIP section 25 and 21.
A motion to go into committee of the whole. Any discussion? Not seeing any. Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. We're going into committee of the whole at 11:20. We're back. Coming out of committee of the whole, we have two motions. 11.1, senior management team discussion. Councillor Wilhelm.
We'll make a motion that council accept senior management team report as information.
Motion on the floor. Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. And 11.2, Councillor Burrows.
Just make a motion that council responds to the request for funding on the Arts and Culture Center, explaining our position, Woodlands County's position.
Okay. Motion on the floor. Any discussion on that? Councillor Dean?
Just some of the conversation was about having council preview that before it went out. Is that still?
Yeah, the letter will come to council for a draft before it's sent. Okay. Any other discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. And one more on the bottom there. Councillor Prestidge?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. No discussion on that. Call the question. All in favor? And we're adjourned. Merry Christmas, everybody.